Welcome to this week's vlog. First of all, I want to update you on the budget and the changes that were announced to inheritance tax. It's welcome, but it doesn't go anywhere near far enough. Bringing in the ability to transfer the £1 million exemption between spouses is something which we've been asking for ever since last year's budget. It brings this policy in line with other tax policies. For those that benefit, particularly members that have already lost a spouse, it's a significant change and one that we welcome. But for other members, particularly those that are divorced or single, and those that are elderly and caught in the eye of this storm, it doesn't go further enough to protect those farms. The change that was announced means the policy that the Prime Minister defended and that multiple cabinet ministers defended, saying that a couple will have a £3 million allowance, is now the situation on the ground. It is far more likely that many farming businesses, that the couple that own the farm, will have that £3 million relief available. Our absolute focus is now on those that are acutely impacted, the elderly and terminally ill that have no ability to use the gifting rule. The anti-forestalling clause, which was contained within the budget last year, deliberately trapped this group of people, and you'd all been told it wasn't going to happen. We are imploring the government to show some humanity, some compassion. A tax policy should never create the most severe human pressure that has been created by this change. Immediately after the budget, I raised this example with Secretary of State Emma Reynolds, a plea that the government can still mitigate, can still change this policy and mitigate it for the cruelest and most severe impacts. In the debate in Parliament this week, MPs from all sides have raised their significant concerns that the change doesn't go further enough. We thank them all for raising the issue, especially those Labour MPs that are pushing for further change. I do want to take an opportunity to say a big thank you to all members that have been involved with this campaign over the past year, to thank all of those MPs in all parties that have continued to raise the issue and the public for their support. The change has only come about because of the pressure that's been built and the political pressure from within the party to create this change. We will need you again as we try and push for amendments, but thank you very much for your efforts so far. When the political opportunity arises to create substantive change to the policy, which is likely to be ahead of the next election, we will be urging all opposition parties whose support has been so welcome and vocal in opposition to these proposals to commit in their manifestos to overturn the inheritance tax changes. Until then, our immediate focus is supporting MPs in preparing amendments. Our legal team are ready to help them, and we will focus all of our efforts on trying to mitigate the impacts on those that are facing the most acute challenges. We'll be working to convene the whole industry to speak with one voice about the amendment that can have the biggest impact. I also just want to reflect on the events in London this week. The sight of farmers being arrested is deeply disturbing and concerning. We're seeking to understand from the Met Police their reasons for imposing the restrictions on the protest and then the reasons for the subsequent arrests. We are seeking reassurances that these decisions were purely operational and weren't influenced by others. Until we have that detail, it is difficult to pass further comment. Further reflections from the budget are about the 4.1% increase in the national living wage. At a time when the government are very worried about food price inflation, we need to reflect that much of this inflation is being driven by government policy. The national living wage has now risen by 12% in 2 years, on top of the national insurance increases. These are two key drivers of food price inflation, and none of that stays back in the farmer's pocket with an improved margin. I also want to reflect on the increase to the sugar ATQ. There was previously 260,000 tonnes allowed in tariff-free. On Wednesday, this was increased to 325,000 tonnes. At a time where we're seeing the global sugar market depressed, we're seeing good yields, although highly variable here in the UK, and we all know we've got a reduced contract offer for next year. All this is going to do is drive investment overseas. It's short-sighted by the government. Rather than driving investment in our rural economies and growth of our own economy, we're driving that investment overseas. I also want to talk about the SPS agreement and dynamic alignment. You'll know that last year in May, there was the announcement that the UK and the EU made about dynamic alignment. 3 weeks ago, the government announced that they were doing some scenario planning with a hard realignment date of the 1st of June 2027. This is a target date for the implementation, and we are going through a technical process at the moment for all sectors to identify the technical barriers that would make that realignment difficult, what the solution might look like, and what any associated cost of that solution might be. We'll then be urging the government to look at the transition agreements which are needed rather than a hard realignment for those sectors most impacted. One example is plant protection products, where we have 2 fungicides and 2 herbicides registered that aren't available in the EU. These products are agronomically superior to other products that we have on the market, and it's unthinkable that after the registration period, we would simply not have those products available. This is the sort of area where we believe a transition agreement is highly likely to be needed until those products get registered within the EU. If you've got any examples of any technical barriers to implementation on the 1st of June 2027, then please do bring them forward to your NFU representatives. I now want to hand over to Rachel, who's going to update on rural crime.
So much going on, as is always the case, so I'm going to give you one of my whistle-stop tours about the policy areas that I've been working on. Rural crime, this is the first one. You may have seen in the press that police crime commissioners are going to be disbanded by 2028. Now I know that this is really disappointing, but if I'm honest, it was not unexpected. The new mayoral authorities will be in place by 2028, and what will happen is those powers that the PCCs had will be transferred over to the mayoral authorities. We will do what we will do best. We will knock on doors, we will go and meet them, and we will take your concerns to them and help them work with the police forces to fix them. Second on rural crime was the launch of the Rural Crime Strategy. Now the NFU has been involved in its development since get-go, and I'm really, really pleased that there are 3 things in this strategy that really jump out to me as positives for our members. Number 1, that the majority of the NFU asks are actually part of this strategy. That's a really positive move, that we have really been heard. Your concerns have been heard. Number 2 is the fact that there is a general recognition that rural crime can be very, very serious crime, and it crosses borders. So there is a recognition that there needs to be more collaboration across borders with police force to police force, and actually it's in there that internationally we also need to be collaborating more as well. Third, out of this rural crime strategy, is the fact that the Policing Minister, Sarah Jones, and the Farming Minister, Dame Angela Eagle, have both written in the forwards for this strategy. This might not sound like a big thing, but this is a first, and it is also an acknowledgement by them that rural crime is an issue to us all. So that's really good, and we see how that develops and how actually that strategy gets put into place. Second thing I want to talk to you about is agricultural skills and training. This is a really big policy area that's developing quite quickly. Dame Angela Eagle has set this as one of her priorities, and we are having numerous meetings with different organisations about what this looks like on the ground. And one thing that actually came out in the budget, in amongst all the noise, is that apprenticeships for small, medium enterprises, many of our members are those small, medium enterprises, for under 25s will be free of charge. Yes, I know it's a drop in the ocean, but it's a step in the right direction. And I'm meeting with Skills England next week to talk about what this actually means and what do they know about our industry and how can they help us, help them, ensure that the funding is in the right place to help our industry grow. So just a few small things there from me about work that's going on, and I hope to report back on the skills and training in the very near future.
Thank you very much for listening to this week's vlog. On Monday night at 6 p.m, we've got a live webinar to update you on all the changes in the budget and where we'll focus our lobbying next. Please do join us.